You ready to go?
That's good.
I'm ready.
Welcome, everybody. I'm David Bank. I'm the editor of Impact Alpha, investment news for a sustainable edge. Since last year, we've been highlighting entrepreneurs and investors, trying to get to the stories of the real deals that put real money down on real solutions to real problems. One of our trusted guides through this uncharted terrain has been the irrepressible Andy Lower. So I'm delighted to be with him today for this inaugural Real Deal webinar. I met Andy when he was executive director of the Elios Foundation, where he developed some truly innovative methods to get capital to standout ventures such as Liberty and Justice, Sanergy, and Digital Divide Data, among many others. About a year ago, Andy launched ADAP, a different approach to poverty, and has come out of the gate very quickly, about to close its 10th deal. That kind of activity stands out in a field in which many investors claim there's a shortage of investable deals. Andy believes successful investments are made, not found, and is going to share some of his experiences with us today. Before we get started with Andy, I want to introduce Nushin Katabi. She is the co-founder of Vega Coffee and one of ADAP's investments. Nushin, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and the basic Vega story.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, David. So yeah, I'm Nushin Katabi, co-founder of Vega. And Vega is transforming the coffee industry by empowering coffee farmers to roast their own coffee, bypass middlemen, and sell directly to customers in the United States. Our farmers earn 4 times more income through our model, and customers get their specialty coffee at a value. So it all starts with a problem, and with Vega, the problem was that farmers have been trapped in a system that has not been working for them. For years, their income has been declining, and they are out of the most profitable part of the supply chain, which is roasting. On the other hand, meanwhile, customers are paying more and more money every year for their cup of coffee. And that's a little bit strange, right? Both sides of the supply chain are missing out. Where's all that money going to? Well, it's going somewhere to in this complicated, convoluted, antiquated supply chain. And what this looks like is that up to 20 middlemen stand between the farm and the consumer who enjoys their coffee, getting it from, maybe your favorite coffee shop or store. Every one of those people in that supply chain get a cut, and very little winds up with the farmers who spend years tending to the crop. So what we at Vega basically set out to do was to change the whole setup of how you get your coffee. We're not through our model relying on retail establishments where most of your dollar can actually go to things other than coffee. We thought, hey, why don't we shift the most profitable part of the chain to the farming communities, have farmers roast their own coffee, and sell that directly to customers online. That's what we're doing, and what that looks like is this supply chain. I think it's up. I can't see the slides right now, but it basically is this comparison of the very complicated middleman-dense supply chain versus our really streamlined supply chain. What happens is basically the coffee comes from the farm, farmers roast it, and then we ship it off to the customers. And you can see on the retail side, our customers, it's actually, I think, 3 slides beyond this, 2 or 3 beyond this one, I'm saying. Yeah. So, and what winds up happening is that people get their specialty coffee at a value. So that's what the Vega model looks like vis-a-vis the traditional model. And as far as our impact, you can move to the next slide. Our farmers are earning 4 times more income. They become seed-to-cup coffee professionals, and they attain market access. So not only are they making more money, but we have regular payments. They get paid every time they roast, so that lends to their financial stability. Also, we're only sourcing shade-grown and chemical-free coffee to, lessen our impact on the environment. And then gender has always been an issue in the coffee industry. Women are historically underrepresented throughout the world, so that's a priority for us. So 90% at least of our farmer roasters right now are women, and that's because we believe everyone should have the dream to achieve economic latitude. And we look to source coffee also from cooperatives with women farmers. So that's what we're doing basically in Vega.
That's great. Nushin, tell us where you are coming from today. Where are you?
I'm in Nicaragua, actually. We have farmers roasting right in the other room right now. So, yeah.
And so you got started a couple years ago, I believe. You're in business with your husband, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's right. With my husband and one of our really good friends, Luca.
And as you came to this from the solution side to try to help the livelihood of coffee farmers, but what kind of business challenges did you face, particularly in raising capital?
Well, basically, thankfully the path was relatively smooth. I'll give you just a tiny bit of background. We started time-wise January 2014. We did a lot of product testing, deepening our inroads with some of the farming communities we knew here in Nicaragua. We had a really successful Kickstarter campaign about middle of 2014. We raised double our goal. The total was over $40K. And at that point, you know, we were ready to start looking for real money. We had a pretty impassioned group of backers, and we were ready to go. You know, we had been testing things out for a while at that point. So we went to SOCAP last year. We were able to get a deal room through the Agora Partnerships Program. We were part of their 2014 class. And we were lucky to receive some interested investors right at that deal room. So we had continued conversations over that week. We were really interested actually specifically in Andy, who we didn't meet through our deal room, but we knew about based on his vision and his background. It was just one of those strategic investors we were really hoping would work out for us through SOCAP. And I think we initially ended up meeting Andy through one of the investors we had met at our deal room. And we probably met with Andy for about 10 minutes on the last day of SOCAP, told him a little bit about where we were at, that we were pre-revenue looking to raise a Series A in about 1 to 2 years. And it was a pretty simple conversation. You know, we matched the ADAP profile and we got along well, and it, you know, we made commitments to continue the conversation from there.
Just for viewers who don't know the jargon, SOCAP is the Social Capital Markets Conference every year in the fall in San Francisco, a place where many entrepreneurs and investors find each other. Andy, tell us what you thought when you first met Nushin and her team at Vega.
Yeah, so I think Nushin sums out well. A couple of other investors encouraged us to have a meeting. We met very, very briefly just because of time constraints, and I was literally heading out the door. But it was a natural conversation, a natural fit. I was really impressed by their vision. I was really impressed by them as people in terms of their ability to listen and the way that they were kind of being able to have a direct conversation and not intimidated by other investors. And I was really impressed by the business model and the business opportunity. I think any of us that have been in the developing world know how important it is to work with those working in the agricultural sector and the massive opportunity it is to change the supply chains to have a deep, profound impact. And then especially from the gender angle, the fact they're working with 90% of their farmer roasters are women was very compelling. So it was a natural conversation, a natural fit, and seemed like a worthwhile use of our time to carry on the conversation.
Okay, and so now just take us through the story. What happens then? You've met, there's a basic alignment on mission, you like the team, but what does it take to get from there to actually making an investment?
Yeah, so I think for us the key thing is making sure that we feel comfortable with the entrepreneur the first time we meet them. So do we feel comfortable and do we feel that there's kind of a natural fit? I like the team, you know, they're very, very smart team, and they were very personable. I also felt that we were going to have a natural rapport to be able to work well as a group, and with the model that ADAP has, we want to be very kind of intentional and very involved with the entrepreneurs. So the process was for us to go away. We had a good conversation. We agreed that it seemed to make sense to carry on the conversation. I think we were all traveling at various different points over the next month, so it was kind of a bit of a bitty start. But we agreed to have a follow-on conversation, which was kind of our first of 4, which was a get to know you and do we feel comfortable, and, you know, have we got any are the reflections on the initial conversation. Then the next step was for them to do kind of a data dump where they dumped all the data they had. It was, as Nushin said, pre-revenue, so very early. So the amount of data to analyze was somewhat small, but they'd also got lots of interesting information which has kind of helped them to build up the case of why they were doing the work they were doing. Then we had kind of two more steps in the process. The next one was to kind of analyze the data, which we did on our time rather than taking up the entrepreneur's time, getting very specific about the questions or the concerns or the red flags as we saw them. And then we looked to kind of set up, okay, well, what would a term sheet look like and how could we agree simple, easy to understand terms, minimal negotiation in terms of there was natural alignment, this seemed to make sense, this seemed to be fair, this seemed to be a win for you and a win for us. And then what would the time frame be for us to bring in 3 other investors, which were some of the initial investors that had met them in the deal room, to get the deal done and to get the wire done. So we were trying to get it done within an 8-week time frame. It took slightly longer than that just because of travel schedules, but we basically agreed a deal after 8 weeks, and then it was just a question of kind of tying up the loose ends.
I want to come back to you in a minute, Andy, but Nushin, just bring us up to date now. Where is the business at now? It sounds like it's about 6 months or maybe a little bit less post-funding. What has the effect been of getting that investment?
Yeah, that investment was crucial for us because we were ready to basically start investing in our real infrastructure, you know, the roasting machines, the grinders, the actual things we needed to make this business something. So we did all of that, and that was something that, you know, I just want to say we really did appreciate about the faster process. We had heard, you know, some horror stories about impact investment deals taking forever. We were scared about that because, you know, we felt like we had developed some traction over the first year we were going, which was last year. We wanted to keep that momentum, and we were able to do that. So we immediately, you know, deal was signed, and we were able to what we needed. We could still keep, you know, writing those customers or potential customers that were getting excited about us. And we now are roasting regularly. We have biweekly shipments. We have farmers coming in here, new trainees all the time, and we're working right now to keep widening our customer base. It's been awesome. We've been making a lot of strategic partnerships, and I think really that momentum at the beginning is key. And for us, that was what really worked about this deal.
So Andy, I mean, how can you do business this way? Aren't you breaking the blood oath that all impact fund managers swear to run the entrepreneurs through the ringer, the horror stories that Nushin mentioned? You said you had 4 phone calls. You looked at some sounds like fairly minimal data, as you said, and then you made an investment. What are you doing differently?
Yeah, I don't think it's rocket science. I mean, the basic way that ADAP does it on the next slide is basically we have kind of two screens in the process of the way that ADAP Capital does it. There's the initial screen, which we kind of did in that 10-minute meeting, and then the follow-on phone call, and that kind of has 3 parts to it. Do I trust the entrepreneur, which I did, and I felt very encouraged by the way that we can have an honest, direct conversation. So do I trust the entrepreneur? Not that they're going to be fraudulent, but do I trust them that we can understand each other as alignment? Secondly, do I think this has a fighting chance with business model? I think Vega's model is very compelling. You look at the supply chain slides that Nushin referenced, you know, the contrast between the two is kind of quite big in terms of let's just cut out all the middlemen and let's get good quality coffee that's very compelling for a consumer and has an amazing impact story behind it. So I think the business has a fighting chance. And then thirdly, do I want it on my obituary? And I think that's kind of becoming an increasingly important criteria, because if I don't care passionately about what they're doing, then I'm not going to be motivated about it, and it may well make money, but if I don't really kind of care about it from something that I really want to kind of get my hands dirty on, then it's not going to be very compelling. And then the second stage of our due diligence is to kind of be a bit more systematic. But most of that is on us rather than taking up the entrepreneur's time. I want Vega to be a success. So how can I add most value for them? So we have kind of basically our due diligence, which we could divide up into 7 S's, you know, that are kind of outlined on the slide. Do we think there's a solution to extreme poverty? In the case of Vega, totally. Does it shift the rules of the game? Does it make a massive paradigm shift? Is it really disruptive that I want to get up in the morning to be working alongside the entrepreneurs? Do they have the right staff? Do they have the right team that's there? Do they have the right connections? Is it scalable? Can they have a massive impact? Is it just going to be a small shop? Is it sustainable? Is it going to make it in the long term? Do the numbers make sense, or do we think there's a potential for the numbers to make sense? Do they have some strategic plan? And do they have the awareness that they're going to have massive pivots in the first year or two of operations, and have they kind of thought that one through? And then the last S is it compelling for other people? There's certain deals that I've looked at that I'm really excited about, but I don't think are going to be very compelling for Series A investors. So that's kind of our screen is kind of the 7 S's. That's done on our end. We then send our due diligence summaries to the entrepreneurs and get them to weigh in and see if it's a fair summary, see if there's things that we've missed, and if there's other issues that we should be aware of. And again, we're trying to do that from a spirit of transparency and a spirit of a trust relationship, so that we can be aware of the weaknesses and then we can think through how best to help them. So that's kind of the ADAP capital angle.
So we promised the viewers the 4-hour due diligence. There's the 4-hour work week and the 4-hour workout, but is the 4-hour due diligence, is that for real? Did you put down money on Vega after 4 hours?
So it's 4 hours due diligence on the entrepreneur's time. So just to be clear, that's on the entrepreneur's time. We don't want to be sucking up more and more of their times. We don't want to be kind of messing around. The key is getting a respectful relationship for the entrepreneurs. So I spent a lot more than 4 hours with Vega. They came and stayed at my house just a couple of months ago, post-investment. So we've built up a trust relationship. We've got to know each other before the money's moved, and we've established that trust, and the money moves quite quick, which means that we've got massive skin in the game. I have a fiduciary duty. ADAP Capital is other people's money, so I have a fiduciary duty to make sure that I am doing sufficient due diligence, but a lot of that's on me and my team to be doing that behind the scenes rather than sucking up more time with the entrepreneurs. If I trust the entrepreneur and I trust what they're giving me is the best information that they have, then the onus is on me to be working out, okay, what is the additional information that we don't know? And there's very little that I personally have learned that changed my initial reaction after 4 hours. There may be more information that comes to light as we move on the relationship. And, when Vega came and stayed at my house, we spent a morning kind of brainstorming through where they were at, what the key lessons learned were, what were going to be the major pivots, what were the goals that we wanted to achieve, the milestones, the KPIs, et cetera, et cetera. But nothing fundamentally had changed for me to decide whether or not I was going to invest the money or not. What had changed was the fact that we trusted each other because I had massive skin in the game and we had a good rapport that we kind of worked on. Which is kind of the other part of it, kind of going back one slide, there's two parts of what ADAP does. There's the ADAP capital angle, which is, just on our 10th deal. It's a small early stage seed fund of $1 million, and it's the initial fund, and we'll be doing other funds in the future. But the not so secret source is kind of the ADAP advisory piece, where we're working with a number of other companies, actually 17 companies that we're working with, and that provides the intellectual capital that these entrepreneurs need. Like I said, I want to be working very closely with the entrepreneurs. I speak to them every couple of weeks. I'm available as much as possible. And a lot of that is kind of brainstorming through what I would consider to be kind of common sense, but being able to kind of be a sounding board for them, as well as being able to use our associate program, which is a number of associates that have joined us at ADAP, to kind of help to provide intellectual capital on the nitty-gritty details.
Now, you show the slide here with $1 million, which is relatively small, as you say, but I think you have a theory of how to leverage that initial capital as well as your intellectual capital and your due diligence, your sweat equity, so to speak, to bring in more capital. So tell us just a little bit about that model of how ADAP serves as early stage money for these kind of ventures.
Yeah, so we're happy to be a lead on the deals that we work with. We want to kind of help the entrepreneur to pull things through. So with Nushin and Vega, it was an initial meeting with other investors. I then worked with the other 3 investors that all decided that they were going to invest. We spent the time having conversations with them that didn't take up too much time from the entrepreneur. And then I've worked with the entrepreneurs, with Nushin, to help to manage communication, to manage the relationship with other investors. And we typically have kind of a 1-to-4, if not a 1-to-6 ratio model of the money that ADAP Capital puts in, leveraging that with other investors. And then we kind of negotiate the terms on behalf of the other investors alongside the entrepreneurs to try to find win-win-win scenarios.
And I think we have one of those other investors with us today. John, are you here? Maybe you can, this is John Aliff from GiftVest, who is co-invested with ADAP in Vega. And John, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about how you both saw this particular deal, but also how you see this early stage financing game in general.
Sure. Thanks, David, and hello, everybody. Just wave if you can hear me, as that's the first time I'm speaking.
Yes,
great.
Okay. We can hear you. Can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, a lot of the things that Andy's been describing just ring true with how we go about doing our deals. I think the notion of 4 hours for us is a loose notion. I think some deals take even less time just to make that decision. We're generally investing similarly to ADAP in pre-revenue, proof of concept businesses, and it's a pretty straightforward, I would say, in 3 areas that we look at. One is the sector one that we want to be involved in? So if we take a look at Vega, the answer was very quickly a yes, both from the coffee, not especially, but the type of model that Vega was presenting with a web-based type approach, and especially the farmer view on it. It was certainly something we wanted to get involved in. The business model we take a look at, but then it comes down to the team. And there's very little you can do in these early stage ventures if you don't get the team or the entrepreneur. In this case, it happened to be a team of 3. In other deals we're involved in, it's a single entrepreneur. And so it's a pretty intuitive decision. I think one of the things that I would raise as a pointer is some entrepreneurs are entrepreneurial, others are more analytical. And I think some investors are very entrepreneurial and some investors are more analytical. And you tend to see that those tend to attract an entrepreneurial investor tends to go towards the entrepreneurial entrepreneurs, if you like, and the more analytical deals tend to attract more analytical types of investor. We happen to be very entrepreneurial, and the thing about the 4 hours is I don't think we ever find anything after 4 hours where if we'd have found it out, we wouldn't have invested. So I think you find that critical information, which is that yes/no decision point within those 4 hours.
Well, we promised some provocative comments here, so let me just take off the diplomacy and have you both speak a little bit about what you see as some of the problems that other impact investors either create or face in getting deals done. What are some players, you don't have to name them, what are some players doing wrong?
I don't want to say that people are doing things wrong. I think sometimes it's a question of meeting expectations. I think if the entrepreneur doesn't understand who they're talking to, then sometimes the expectations get way out of whack. Of course, there are always examples. We've all read the reports from Impact Assets and others about 12 months of discussion only to walk away from the table at the last minute. But I think it's more about having alignment. If somebody knows that GiftVest is on the other end of the line and they know they're going to get a decision within a few days, they know it. But there may be other investors that need more time and they still remain exceedingly valid and valuable investors to an entrepreneur. So I think it's more about setting expectations on one side, and then clearly, yes, I don't think we'll find things which, in pre-revenue proof of concept type deals, I don't think you'll find something after, if you've been going at it for a week, you're not going to find anything in the second week which should significantly change your investment decision.
Andy, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think John, I think he's also quite diplomatic. I think he's right about different investors and kind of making sure that there's alignment of values. The other angle that I would kind of really encourage, I think there's kind of basic core values that need to be implemented when we're dealing with anyone, especially in the impact investing space. So the more time that I spend taking up with the entrepreneurs is time that Nushin is spending away from the farmers that I'm hoping that she'll be empowering. So I think there's kind of basic decencies that we just all need to apply to our unique structures and to our unique personalities. We kind of make our decision. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is to kind of have mutual respect, mutual trust, and mutual accountability to make sure that as we go through the whole process, we can kind of keep the conversation going. And that happened even with Vega when there was a couple of times when there was a lull in the process because we were traveling or because we were looking at other things, you know, Vega felt free to kind of push me, and I felt good to push them, and we kept things going in a mutual understanding way. I don't know if Nushan wants to kind of chime in on some of the challenges there.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, it kind of goes back to that idea that we received commitments early, you know, in the process. And so the process felt very collaborative rather than sort of some of that typical, you know, power dynamic that can be there. You know, you want to treat your investors as, or potential investors as potential partners, but at the same time you also need money, and that's the reality of the situation. I think what Andy in particular was really good at is making us feel comfortable from those initial conversations that, you know, and respecting our time too, understanding that we are trying to work on something that we really believe in and we want to do a good job at it, and him having that vision in our vision too is, of course, is helpful. And so I feel like, you know, not to sound like rosy, but we, you know, a lot of the challenges for us were kind of minimal. I mean, like Andy said, there's the natural, you know, someone's traveling one time or someone else is traveling another time. You work through that. But, you know, we are really lucky with our investment team, beyond ADAP too. We really are very fortunate for our investors, and I think it's really that mutual respect, you know, just like in any relationship. I think it really, really makes big inroads with this one.
Great. I was going to ask Andy, did you, in the end, did you find anything out in the 4 or 5 months since you made the investment that you wish you had known before you made the investment?
No, I have found out a lot more about them as we spent more time together, and it's actually been very exciting to kind of get to know them and to get to know them personally and kind of really understand what's kind of the inner motivations of what they're trying to do. But there's nothing that we found out that would have made the deal any different. What was interesting is that there were a couple of red flags or areas of concern that we did find out in the 4 hours that we have worked alongside them to work through. But none of them were deal breakers, and because we have an honest, open relationship, we're able to kind of do that. And because we have that relationship, they're able to say, you know, you're concerned about this, but we're not concerned about it because of X, Y, and Z. So we kind of built up that rapport. So yeah, no, nothing was found out, but the depth of relationship has definitely deepened post-investment, which is, I think, helpful for them and helpful for us.
Great. I think if we had time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience, I think you can type them in the Q&A section of your screen there. But let me just ask you all, do you only drink fair trade, well-compensated coffee, or are you, okay, yes or no, fair trade only?
Yes, fair trade only, and I literally got a text message while on the phone from someone else who just signed up for Vega and said it was the best coffee he'd ever had. So Vega are doing a good job for the coffee snobs. I'm not a coffee snob, but fair trade is the way to go.
All right, well, Andy's just giving you a little plug there.
I'll take it. What was that, David? I missed the end.
How do people get Vega coffee?
So we are primarily online only. You can find us at vegacoffee.com, and you can sign up for a subscription right there. And also, we are in the process of pursuing a retail relationship that we're pretty excited about that's in the works, but not quite announced yet. So we might be able to find us at your nearby store. So anyway, stay tuned for that.
One thing I would just chime in with that one, David, on the fair trade angle is I think one of the things that Vega does is, you know, there's lots of debates in the fair trade sector, and I think someone just mentioned it in one of the questions. There's lots of debates whether or not fair trade certification is necessary. I think what's so compelling about Vega is they come at it from a completely different angle. So it's more than just fair trade. It's all about a DNA of empowering the farmers. You know, Nushan mentioned that they're getting 4 times as much pay, which is great. I think what's even more exciting is the fact they get paid on time, reliably, and they're treated with respect. So I think there's a lot more than just getting a certification stamp on the coffee. There's a whole DNA of what Vega are trying to do that's a lot more than just getting a fair trade stamp.
Excellent. And last question, is Vega looking to add other coffee co-ops or expand into other countries?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of our main goals in the model, to build upon what Andy said and moving beyond fair trade, I mean, I could spend hours talking about that, I'll spare you all, but is that we really view that, you know, that our roasting centers and stuff should be fully sustainable by the farmers, and that's a huge part of that economic latitude that we want to foster here in these communities. So right now we are working in Nicaragua. Our goal is to move, you know, our vision is really in every coffee growing region of the world. So from here, you know, we're looking actually next at Honduras, possibly by next year actually, and other parts of Central America as well that we've identified, South America and then beyond. So yeah, we're really excited about that aspect as well, making a really scalable, you know, a really tight scalable model from here on out.
Well, in the interest of not wasting people's time, we've decided to keep this to half an hour and make it short and sweet. I want to thank Nushin Katabi from Vega, Andy Lower from ADAP, and John Aliff from GiftVest for joining us today, and encourage everybody to tune in and sign up for the next episode of the Real Deal series next Wednesday, same time, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And we'll have Shelly Saxena from SevaMob, a very interesting healthcare startup in India. So thanks, everybody, and see you next week.